Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is National Master Bela Kis, and I will show you my first game that I just finished at the Eastern Open here in Virginia. I was with the white pieces. I'm rated around 2200, and I was playing against Danson Zhao, who was playing with the black pieces. I played d4, and my opponent played knight f6. I was fighting for the center here with the center pawn, c4, g6, knight c3. Here black can play bishop g7, d6 for a king's Indian, or he could go for a banker gambit with c5. And if I play d5 to gambit the pawns, or Benoni, but he chose to play the Grunfeld opening. He played d5. What black wants to do? Black wants to trade his pawn, and he wants to give up the center. And white has a beautiful center, and he wants to attack this pawn on d4 with the pieces. So bishop g7, we see the first piece already, and the queen is already pressuring here, and now c5. So the pawn, the queen, the bishop already pressuring d4. I played f3. This was the first key moment of the game. I wanted to avoid certain lines, like for example castling, knight c6, bishop e3 to defend the pawn. Let's say pawn takes, bishop g4. So black wants to take the knight and then capture the d4 pawn with the knight or the bishop, forcing white to play f3, and now knight a5, attacking the bishop. And now white has two options: to move the bishop or to sacrifice the bishop on f7 and capture on g4. Bishop d3, bishop e6, d5. This is really well known, this line. I think Topalov played this back in the days with queen d4, defending the bishop. So now the pawn is ready to capture the bishop. So bishop f7, let's say, for example, bishop h6 attacking the rook, and if you play rook e8, bishop b5. And if you want to save the rook, you gotta make space for the rook. And I think in the game, Topalov played queen f2, rook e7 and f4. And I remember when this game came up from Topalov versus Shirov, Shirov played queen b6, and it was a big surprise. I mean, it was normal, you want to trade queens, you're up on exchange, but after pawn takes e5, and if you take with the pawn, then you have this amazing maneuver, knight c1, knight d3, attacking the pawn on e5, and you want to pick up this pawn with the knight and the bishop, and then you have two passed pawns and the bishop pair, two bishops. So knight c1, let's say you play rook c8, you're already in trouble here because this pawn is going to promote. So you cannot play rook c8. Let's say you want to play rook c7, knight d3. Let's say you want to play knight c4. And I can already take on f7 here with the rook, and you cannot take back because this is a fork. And yes, you can trap my bishop, even though I have h4 here to save my bishop if I really want to. And that's more like a human move. But I can also analyze this endgame where the pawns are just way too advanced, and the king is too far from the pawns, and now white is threatening knight c8, and then to promote the pawn. Let's say you block, I defend my pawn, and you think you're in time to come and collect the pawns, and guess what? I attack your rook moves away, and I queen. And white is going to win this endgame because he has plenty of pawns on the board, and the knight will just collect the pawns. The let's go back to the game. F3. I wanted to avoid that line with bishop g4, and my opponent played e6. I blocked the bishop, and it gave me this idea of playing h4, h5 to open up the file for my rook h5, blocking the h-pawn. And I was happy because I could play bishop g5. And where do you move the queen? If you play queen c7, then I play rook c1. If you play queen b6, then I can also play rook b1. And if you play queen a5, which happened in the game, then I could just play king f2. And that was my idea. I wanted to keep the rook here because I wanted to pawn storm. Knight c6. This is the idea of the Grunfeld, to pressure the d4 pawn. And I played e5. This was probably a surprising move. I wanted to close the center. I wanted to close this bishop from c8, and I want the black pieces to be far away from the black king, because I want a pawn storm and attack. So I want these pieces to be far away from the king, and I want to have more attackers on the king side when the files they're gonna open up. He played b5, very active, very good, and he played bishop a6, which was such a tempting move, such a tempting plan. But I prepared here rook c1 to attack the knight, rook c8 to defend the knight, and now this was my plan, g4. Now, black has two options here, to take or not to take. He chose not to take. What I was planning if you would have taken, let's say you take two times. h6, let's say you take my knight, I take, let's say you play this in-between move, and I will sacrifice my queen with check and mate. So I wanted to get to the king since I played this move h4. I mean, I gave a clear signal what I want. Now, let's say that black is not that greedy and is not going to take the second pawn and plays queen b6. And he pins this pawn, and he can capture here on e5. So bishop e3, I could play, and now knight a5. This was I was thinking for him because he can trade off a lot of pieces. But I still have this in-between move h6 to attack the bishop. And yes, you could take here, but you can trade all these pieces, and you can also try to play rook c8. But now, let's say you play bishop h8, check, king f8, and you want to come out with the king on e7 when I check you. I don't like this for black, because black is too slow here. d5, queen e4, b4, and then I take the rook. Let's see, you play rook a2, and now queen b4 check, king e8, and can I take here with check? And I blocked your pawn, so now the bishop is out of the game. And this is, I just want to play bishop here so I can promote the pawn. So let's go back to the game. He did not capture, he played b4, he wanted to capture my knight, and I calculated this. And I assessed this position a little bit better for white because I have initiative, I have the bishop pair, his bishop is blocked by my own pawns, and I'm making progress here on the king side. He played queen b6 to attack, and that was his plan, that was his idea for the counterplay. And here I sacrificed the rook. This was my idea, and he has no more checks. My king will be safe on f2. I have the bishop pair, and I have this idea of giving up this h pawn and then come with the other one and open up the file for my rook. So that's what happened. h6, bishop h8, h7 check. You have to take there, because if you play king g7 after h5, bishop f6, everything opens up and you're going to get checkmated. This is just a check, and check, check, and mate. So you have to take this pawn, and finally, after all this preparation, I'm getting there. Where can I open up the file, the h file for my rook? This is just a check. I was feeling safe and sound here with my king on f2. I know it looks strange and weird, but I wanted to have the first rank open for my queen. This is a phenomenal pawn. It protects my king. I can hide my king on g3 in the worst case. So I was feeling fine. King g8, he moved out of the file, and I did not find this move, rook h4. Rook h4 was the winning move, with the idea of queen h1 to double up. So h6, and you go back, h7, and checkmate. You have to sacrifice the bishop, and now bishop f6 is coming. I have two bishops for the rook, and I'm still having attack on the king. Instead, I played queen d2 with the idea of bishop f6 and queen f4 and bishop f6. This was my idea. I played rook c3, queen f4. I stick to my plan. And what I calculated is, after I take on g6, this diagonal will open up for my bishop, and also my rook, the file for the rook after all this preparation. He played bishop g7. Let's say you play a waiting move. Then I was preparing the rook sacrifice with check and mate. So he had to play bishop g7, and now finally I get to the base of the pawn structure, so I can open up the diagonal for my bishop. And now the bishop is pinning the rook, and I'm threatening queen takes f7 mate. He defended here. I think it will be much better if you were taken on f3. We will have traded queens. This is what I was calculating, and I assessed this endgame like winning for white, because I can get my exchange back, and I have two passed pawns for the endgame. So if you play rook g3 to give me this check, I was preparing bishop e7 actually. So I'm taking away the square from the king. I'm also threatening rook f1, and now to step out you have to give up the bishop so you can move the king, and I still have a pass pawn here, and which is enough to win the game. He played rook c7. This was a mistake. I played rook c1 because this rook on c7 defends the rook on f7, and if you move the rook away, then I'm going to give you a check. Bishop f8 and queen f6. I like more maybe bishop h6, because now this bishop is pinned from the rook, the other rook is pinned from the other bishop. It's just very hard to make any moves here. Everything's pinned. Queen g6 check, and you can't take back with the rook because it's pinned. Can we trade off everything? Take, check, check, and I have two passed pawns and a bishop. So after rook c1, my opponent took on e5, he took, and then he resigned, because no matter what you do, these two bishops are super strong. This is the power of the bishop pair that we talk always in the class. And I hope you guys enjoyed the game. It was a lesson about initiative, attack, A little bit of surprise with this king f2 and pawn storm, blocking the center, stepping out from the long diagonal with the rook, activating all my pieces, and now, boom, when I was ready, I just launched the pawn storm. And I had to calculate and evaluate this position. Down in exchange, bishop pair, the rooks, they don't have really entry squares here. Your king will be safe and sound on f2, and you still have the initiative and the attack on the king. We will be back with the classes. We're gonna start in Doorstown. We're gonna open up a new class January 7th to February 25th. And the regular schedule in Yarly, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will try to update you guys how I'm doing, but it's 2 games per day. You guys can watch maybe on this website here the results. chessevents.com Eastern Open. Wish you guys nothing but the best, and see you guys soon.